Right.
This is another episode of This, That, and the Other. We're joined today by Tarek Kamil, and hopefully our buddy Rorisiojr Jr. will show up, and we'll get the show rolling as our panel gets together. But as of right now, there's four of us here, so welcome, guys.
Thanks, Magic Man. Thanks, Tarek, for showing up. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Jason, nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you, too. Enjoyed your TED Talk, by the way, as well.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Good stuff.
Jason, where are you located?
I'm down in Raleigh, North Carolina.
All right. I love Raleigh. I was down there. This was probably, actually, it was after I sold What If. One of the What If Sports users had started a stats site, and that thing kind of took off. And so I was on his advisory board. So I flew into Raleigh. I'm there to grab my rental car. And the guy at the counter says, I haven't said a word. I walk up to the counter and he says, Duke or North Carolina? That's right. All he asked. And I said, North Carolina. And he's like, I'm upgrading your car. So clearly there's a right answer and a wrong answer when you're in Raleigh.
Was there a jersey on the wall behind him? Is that what tipped you off? Or
no, I mean, I grew up with Jordan. I'm a Jordan fan. I like the Tar Heels, but I don't hate Duke like most people do.
Right. Have you been to
one or the other?
Have you been to the Tar Heels basketball museum yet?
I haven't.
Yeah, you should take a gander. If you ever get down here again, go check that. It's beautiful. I have no allegiance either way because I'm a transplant, but it's beautiful. And there's actually, they have a lot of obviously Jordan paraphernalia, including the letter from Coach K wishing him well. Sorry that he didn't choose Duke, basically. So
that's great. That's fantastic.
Tarek, I talked to Ed Zimney yesterday.
How is Ed Zimney?
He's doing pretty good. We're going to try to get him on and host one of these as a panelist, and he said he's technically challenged. So his electronics aren't working for him, but he said, nonetheless, be sure I told you he said hello and he's doing well.
Yeah, I used to talk to Ed on a regular basis where he would just call and just want to talk sports.
That's what he said. He said, I'd have an issue and I'd be like, I wonder what the answer is, and just pick up the phone and call Tarek and chat with him. And I'm like, yeah, it's not like that anymore.
I always enjoyed our conversations. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. Well, are you familiar with the outage that we experienced yesterday with What If Sports?
I am not.
The site went down approximately. Well, the site was actually down for approximately 6 hours, but they postponed everything on a 24-hour cycle. Not sure what the issue was. There was some type of notification, and it was a server involved. So I don't know if they were upgrading, reallocating, what they were doing, but yeah, it came out of nowhere, and it upset quite a few people because, as you and I had talked offline about all the different worlds starting on a different day to accommodate different people for the purpose of recruiting and the games, etc. So now that throws everything off by one game. So
it brings back lots of terrible memories because so it is surprising when you see any site down for that long now because everything's in the cloud, but we used to not be in the cloud.
Right.
And so when we would do an upgrade, we would spend the night in the office and we would be there and you're babysitting servers and whatnot. And then every once in a while, something weird would happen. I don't remember us being down for that long, but then you always have to react and people get upset and you have to communicate. And I learned the lesson there was, like, shit happens. I mean, shit happens and it will always continue to happen. Google can go down and Microsoft can go down and Facebook can go down. We can go down. Like, it's going to happen. And the lesson I learned there was just tell people what happened. They just to know the truth and be open and honest and say, hey, we fucked up, or we were trying this, or whatever. But just be honest with people and just keep them in the loop. And more times than not, they're okay with that.
How much
That
of
was a
a
lesson I
dance,
definitely learned during the what if days.
yeah. How much of a dance is it to implement valid, needed updates or software changes with minimizing the disruption? Now, you mentioned having the team there overnight, but a
Yeah.
lot of things I imagine require, the shutting down of the system essentially, because, you've got message boards that stay active, even though there may not be a recruiting cycle or a gameplay cycle. And that's just talking Gridiron Dynasty. We're not even talking the 2 games a day with some of the hoop stuff in baseball or what have you. Shutting that down, that has to be like a planned major event that you are prepared to suffer the consequences and the ire of your players when that has to happen, even though it's to their benefit.
Yeah. I think people, back in the day, it was all about getting better faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were making changes all the time. I mean, it was literally, you might reach out to us and have this great idea, something we never thought of, and it's super easy to implement. So we might hear about it that morning and then put that change out that afternoon. Now, I don't think they do that anymore, but we were at that pace where it was constant change and improvement. And you have to find the right balance. So there were, back then it was, you had pretty much direct access to all of us and you could give us ideas and feedback. And so we were one end of the spectrum. Like we would go out drinking with What If Sports users. Mm-hmm. We would go to Chicago, New York, whatever. And that's our people. And so we knew them, and we, there's the story of Rob Tracy, who works for Elias Sports Bureau, getting a What If Sports logo tattooed on his calf in Chicago. And that really happened because I was there and I paid for the tattoo because I never thought he would do this. So we're at one end of the spectrum where we're you. We play the games, we love the games, we come up with ideas, we want them to get better, and you pay a price for that, right? You are going to fuck shit up. We did that. And sometimes we don't think through necessarily, this might have an unintended consequence. So there's probably a better balance than we had, which was trying to be too proactive. And then the other end of the spectrum are companies that never listen to you. They never make changes. They don't really care. So we didn't want to be that, but we probably were, I know this sounds crazy, too customer focused and too customer centric. I don't know what it's like today, but back in the day, that's definitely how it was.
Well, yeah, what we're seeing today is a little more of a disconnect between those people who can incorporate changes or offer information than it was, in yesteryear. I mean, Scott was around for quite a bit, as we talked about during the most recent update with recruiting and stuff. So he was gracious enough to, in addition to his task of updating a little bit, answer some questions that weren't necessarily pertinent to the update. So big thanks to him for that. And we've been joined by Husker Fan 26 and our guest panelist, Ray Rorisiojr. How are you, Ray? Tell us about yourself. You got to unmute that thing first, brother.
Okay, there we go. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Right. Good.
We show you, Ray, as being a member since December of 2008 with almost 3,300 victories. And you've got 85 conference championships and 15 national championships. Tell us about that first one.
The first natty?
That first one.
Oh, it was on my birthday, and I don't know how I won that one. it was bizarre going back. With a buddy of mine, Jay, and I've gone back looking at the stats, and that season, I think I threw 48 touchdowns and 36 picks and went 18-1.
Airing it out. Airing it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently. So Ray,
But
kind
no,
of how this
it's-
thing works. We've got Tarek on with us today, who's graciously volunteered to come back for his second stint on This, That, and the Other, and yourself as a guest panelist. Big time thank you for volunteering to voluntold to set in and offer some of your input and your insight. So we've got two guys here, and I know Jason and Daryl both been playing for a while. Jason, the more recent. So have you guys got any questions for Ray?
I have one big one.
Oh, no.
One big one, Kate. Go ahead, Husker fan.
So what's the trick to winning? I'm here for that equation, and then I promise I won't tell anyone.
Yeah, that's what we always hear. I won't share the Holy Grail. I'll keep it quiet. It's a secret.
Trick, good question. I quite frankly, I found a niche with the wishbone, and just kind of hard to explain. I don't know how all of a sudden it's turned on, if it was recruiting, luck, or what, but
Do you find it's easier to win once you've won? Because it's now easier to recruit. Do you feel like that's the case? Because I think that's how it is in real life. I think there are teams that just, once they start winning, they have to do something wrong to stop winning. Like in basketball, for example.
Yeah, I think it got easier after I won my second national title. The first one I won back in, I think it was like 2010, 2011, and I didn't win my second one until 2018. So
Wow.
I think it was just learning the game, recruiting, trying to balance out classes, learning what type of players fit the schemes I run, and just trying to go that route.
Gotcha. Cool.
I think
Welcome, Jay. I see you've joined the show. Are you with us?
Which Jason are you looking at?
we J9 is made the room.
No.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I saw that it was up. I was just trying to watch, but it looks like you have to join to watch this thing.
Let's see. I've got you. Yeah, you've got all the rights to see us and all that kind of stuff. So you should be able to see what we're doing. You missed the answer to the Holy Grail question about the secret to winning.
Who gave you the answer? Was it Ray?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, I don't know how much I missed.
I'll say one thing, Magic.
Right
To the point that we were just talking about, I think one of the things I've learned from playing a lot of Hardball Dynasty too is you start to see how random events take place in the real sporting world and how that's reflected in just stats in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you constantly see teams, and I'm pretty new to Gridiron Dynasty, but I'm learning. But in Hardball Dynasty for sure, there are times where you're playing teams that you would expect would win, 70% of the time, and yet in a 5-game series, the other team wins. And I think that's interesting because it goes to show that when you see that in the real world too, people freak out and they say, oh, certain players aren't playoff players or whatever. But I really think that it's just a numbers game. And I think we see that proved out by looking at the statistics of the results in our other games.
Yeah, and the parity that I see in certain worlds in Gridiron Dynasty, you've got a couple, I think Leahy's one where you've got 3 or 4 coaches that pretty much dominate. Then you get down to Wilk, and it's like, man, it's a coin flip of who's going to win that game. You could be looking at a number 1 ranked team going up against a number 29 ranked team, and lo and behold, the 29 ranked team clobbers the number 1 ranked team. Those coaches, especially in those super conferences now, they're so much higher than the general player, but within their own group, within that conference, the parity is just unbelievable. And that is one of the situations where I would love to see the game animated, where we can see the plays.
Yeah, I remember this would happen, and this would be points of conversation all the time when someone would see something unusual, like a perfect game in Sim League baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rare, and so they don't know, is this happening all the time? And so we actually went back and we looked, and it happened in Sim League baseball about 1 out of every 25,000 games. And in real baseball, it's about 1 out of every 26,000 games. There's a perfect game pitched. So it was right in there. But when you see it, it's odd. Or if there's a big upset, people like, there's no way my team should have lost. My players are way better. I'm a better coach. I've got a better record. We never should lose this game. And people are upset when they lose. I say, number 1 ranked Virginia lost to a Division II school with Ralph Sampson, right?
Don't say it.
Upsets happen.
Don't say it. That broke my heart. Chaminade sucks.
It happens. Wright State beats Michigan State. It happens. There are upsets. So that's why in any one game, there could be upsets. But over the course of a series, normally the better team is going to win that series.
Yeah, you mentioned Ralph Sampson. I've got a picture on Facebook of he came to one of our sports banquets. I think I was a senior in high school, and he was still in high school. That's back when he was only about 7'1". And I think, it's like, I think the top of my head came about where his chest is. And I was stretching everything I had. I mean, the guy was just huge. Got to play him one-on-one. I can tell you how that went. Dunk, 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 dunk. So that was quite interesting. But good old Ralph, and his sister's just every bit as good as he is. So, but yeah, that was a heartbreaker. That Chaminade against Virginia. That yeah, but you're right. It's not an anomaly. It's an eventuality. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. Villanova beating Georgetown. I mean, there's so many big upsets, but they're normally one-offs. Over the course of a series, it's much harder, especially a 7-game series. It's really hard to do that. And we saw the same thing. But when you're on the losing end of that upset, it's brutal. I've been there. I'm sure you guys have been there. It feels terrible, and you want to scream at somebody. So they would always scream at us.
Of course.
I've lost a mouse. A phone has been thrown across the room once or twice.
Listen, I'm just glad now I finally understand how Ray beats me sometimes. Because upsets can happen.
Oh my gosh.
Trash talking on film. I love it. That's great.
Ray, what was your heartbreaker? I know you had one that you thought for sure you had in the bag only to be pulled out from underneath you.
Probably in the last couple of years when Freeman had his Richmond powerhouse going. I always made a point to play him every season, just use him as a measuring stick. How good my team's doing out at Sam Houston. And I don't know how many times, halftime score would be 7-3, 10-7. A couple times I was leading. I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to slam, and second half rolls through, and he beats me 45-10. And just,
how appropriate that we hear a train whistle steamrolling its way through.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. But pretty much, you got Jay on here. He's probably the one that kept me in this game, just meeting him, talking to him, bouncing ideas off each other. Can't remember the whole story. He remembers it, but something to do with the recruiting Hayes, and I was on my last season. I was about ready to say the heck with this thing, and couldn't figure nothing out. And for some reason,
there's always a recruit.
Yeah, man, we had a recruit we were battling for, and he ended up really beating me for the recruit. And I sent him a site mail saying, "Hey, congratulations, you got him. Don't waste your money anymore. I'm out. I can't do nothing about it." He sent me one back, says he's already moved on. I can take him. So I ended up signing this kid that turned out to be a beast at offensive line. And then from then on, for the past probably 3 calendar years, we've actually been bouncing stuff off each other, different ideas. Kept us both kind of in the game, trying to figure out the defensive, offensive side. So, yeah, that's the story. It was a battle between San Diego and Cal Poly for an offensive lineman, and now the rivalry rages even more 3 years later.
I'm glad, Jay, you left in Hayes. You left the Pac-10 because you kept me out of a few national title games, and those were the times when the phone or the mouse was thrown away. So just send me the address. I'll send you the bill for, the mouse and everything else.
Man, I could tell you what, and Husker 26 knows this, that I was so mad. I went undefeated at Cal and got left out of a national championship game. And I've been trying so hard to get that team to a NC, and I was undefeated. Beat USC twice that year in the CC, and then got left out. Strength of schedule was pretty strong, but still got left out. And I told them, I said, I'm done. I'm gonna take a couple of seasons off. I'll wait for an elite to open up. My resume can't get any better. I'm just gonna relax. And I'm pretty sure that I got probably gifted a couple of seasons from Husker 26. Saying thank you for leaving Cal. So.
Yeah. After you left, I started recruiting freely. The whole West Coast was mine. I was so happy, my friend. I was like, whoo, thank you, Alabama.
So, Tarek, you see the camaraderie
that might be
this thing you have created. The camaraderie is there. It's even growing. Did you play the game from not just a software developing position, but as an enjoyable position, as one of just free time recreation?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I was, so I was involved in the beginning. It was really just me kind of creating these things, and then we eventually added more engineers, and I became more kind of, what are we doing next, and how are we going to make these things better? And then I was working on partnerships with ESPN and Fox and whatnot. But probably my favorite game and where would have started was college basketball. So that's how the whole thing began. I'm a huge college basketball fan, but I love all the sports. And Hoops Dynasty was kind of the first dynasty game. And so that was the idea that I had, because we'd always done things with real players and real statistics. And I thought there's a whole part of the game that is missing. And I want to experience that. I want to think through, how should I be thinking about and strategizing my non-conference schedule? When do I take a job? When do I stay? When do I lay off a recruit? What about this kid that would fit perfectly but is 1,000 miles away? Like, do I have the money to go after that kid? Right? There is so much. We haven't even started a season. It is that part of the game that I thought was fascinating to me, and it wasn't really captured anywhere. So I wanted to build that. So yeah, I both built and played the games. Yeah, and won national championships.
Really?
And people would always say
championship
in Hoops Dynasty. I did. So I won a number of national championships in Hoops Dynasty at different levels, D3, D2, and I think even D1, if I remember right. But people would say, isn't that unfair that you build the games and you play the games? It's like, but I can't control other people.
Right.
Now, it would be unfair if I could give myself more money and, have unlimited recruiting funds. It's not like PlayStation or Xbox where you can put in cheat codes. That doesn't exist.
Yes.
Although that was always a rumor and a myth in the forums. So whenever they saw somebody new, I don't know if they still do this, somebody be new, hey, I'm new to Gridiron Dynasty. And somebody would jump in and say, you want me to send you the cheat codes? And they'd be like, yes, send me the cheat codes. So then they would site mail them things like, yeah, it's up, up, down, semicolon. And then they go back to the forum and say, these aren't working.
What am I doing wrong?
Right. It's like, getting hazed as part of your initiation. So yeah, we couldn't do any of that. It was, I would lose recruits to people. And I'm just like you guys. I don't know how human beings are going to coach against me, recruit against me, all of it. And a lot of it is dependent on the other coaches in your conference. So when you think about real athletics, especially in the dynasty games, the prestige we have as a conference, the number of teams we could send to the national tournament impacted how much money we received. So it was like we were brothers where we would fight with each other, but we wanted our conference to beat every other conference. Right. So it was, the whole thing was super interesting. So super long answer to a short question, but yes, loved playing the games.
Well, Opie is one of our newest gamers as far as the attendance here. What kind of advice can you give him as far as stick-to-itiveness, not to give up on the game? What are some of the positives to look for as you evolve yourself as a coach, your processes and your philosophies?
I guess I can start that, and then you guys can jump in and help him. But for me, it was, I want a strategy. Like, what is my strategy? And I want to do everything that's in line with that strategy. So if my strategy, talk about Hoops Dynasty because I know that game the best. If my strategy was, I'm really intelligent about recruiting. All right, cool. What does that mean for me? That means we're going to be deeper than the teams that we play. How do we leverage that strength? I want to play fast. I want to press. I want to wear you out. And so that would be a strategy that I would try. And then I would see whether that's working or not, and I start making refinements. But it is not just random. If you go in there and you want to be great at everything and sign the best players without really thinking strategically, is anybody watching Last Dance, Chicago Bulls? You guys watching that?
Oh, yeah.
It's being recorded, so I can watch it all in one time.
It's fantastic, but the reason I bring it up is because that team, you have Jordan, which is great, but then you've got Rodman. He is a puzzle piece, right? If you are a coach and you're always going for the 5-star recruit, the best ratings or whatever, like that is a big risk. And you may not get that kid, and you might not even need that kid. You might need something else that fits in with your strategy. So if you're going to play fast, and for me, play fast and press, I want to be deep. I want good athletes. I don't necessarily care if they can score. I want them to create turnovers. So that was my theory. Now I can go out and try it and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, what's my next theory I want to try? So for me, it was always start with a strategy, stick to it, and make sure every decision is in line with your strategy. As what I saw the biggest mistake coaches make is they're trying to be everything. They're trying to do everything. Like, no, that's not a strategy. That's not realistic that you're going to be able to play that way. So that would be my piece of advice for anyone new getting started in any of the dynasty games.
That's good advice. I appreciate that. Can I ask, Meji, can I ask one follow-up to Tarek on that?
Why, of course.
This is a strategic question, but it's more on the business side of things. And my question is, from a business point of view, we've all enjoyed these games for many years. I've been playing Hardball Dynasty for 14 years on and off, but Gridiron Dynasty is a little bit newer to me. But we've all seen how the tide has changed a little bit from obviously when you were in charge, and now we're in a period where there's more of a development stagnancy as you might expect. I guess it's the lifespan of a software product and how you, turn that around for profit, et cetera. So I understand some of those business concepts, but I was curious from a strategic point of view, what your advice would be to us, those who enjoy the game, but would also love to see development continue, even though we haven't seen substantial development for quite some time. What do you think the best strategy is for us as a community to see the game evolve? And in that answer, I was hoping you might also talk about if you think that there is a opportunity in the future for games at this point in their lives for communities to have a role in development, or if you think that is unlikely something that would happen. I'm just looking for advice from you on how you think we should look at a game that we hope to see still continue to evolve.
That's a really good question. I think yes. I think there would be it's not my decision anymore.
Of course.
But if it were, and I think Scott is carrying a lot of weight. As far as I know, I'm not sure he has much assistance right now. So you've got this thing, but it's software and you can always make it better. And so he's got to pick and choose where he's going to spend his time. Even back in the day, so this is in the very, very beginning, one of the things that I did was you could tell who the innovators were on the site and who really knew their stuff. And so one of the things I did was for each game, I put together a group. So it was a private group, and we would have conversations about things that we were thinking about. And we would assign them projects. Hey, whatever, here's a data set, and we want you to do this with that data set. We're thinking about doing this with this game. What do you guys think? And they would have conversations, and it was a really great in-depth conversation. They would help guide the future of that game. And we did that for every single game. I don't know if that's still happening, but I feel like the idea of not listening to the people that are most passionate about your product is a stupid one. Whether it's What If Sports or whether it's we're here in Cincinnati, Procter & Gamble. Like, they're huge. If you're not listening to your customer, you're making a huge mistake. And so I felt like this is a great way to get people involved. These people love what we're doing. Why would we not listen to what they have to say and ask for their opinion? I don't want to take this thing down a road that I think is great, but nobody else thinks is great. So I'm not building this for me, I'm building it for everybody. And we would pay them in site credits. They would get something every month just to give us feedback. I don't know if that's still happening. I mean, you guys probably could reach out to Scott. I could reach out to Scott and ask him if that's the case. Because I think he would be open to that. The more help he can get, I think the better. So what you're asking is a great question, and it's something I've believed in for a long time. We still do that. All the businesses I've run since What If, we've always done that. I just don't know if they're doing that today. But I do believe he would be open to it because I've hired him out of college. He doesn't really know anything else. Like, this is the way we've always operated. So if you went back to him and said, hey, I would love to be part of a hardball dynasty, I think we called them councils at the time, or a gridiron dynasty council to talk about the future and the direction of this game. Are you open to that? This is not a foreign concept. He already did this, right? He knows this. So I think you could suggest that to him and he'd be very open to talking to all you guys.
That would be great.
Like something that we can definitely look into. Guys, I'm going to try something here. We're at the end of our recording allocation. I'm going to actually try to stop this particular recording and start another one. So to the viewers, if there's no part 2, you know it didn't work. If there's a part 2, well, just check it out. So let's see what happens here.
I also saw a notice, Magic, that the host had extended the time or whatever. I at least saw that on my screen. I don't know if that has an impact on the recording. But.
Yeah, I think that was the 2-minute warning for us. Let's try something here.